Spider Bread, does whatever a Bradley can. Is he cringe? Of course he is. He's a bread. After all, look out! Here comes the Spider Bread. Marvel's Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, a show that I actually was not looking forward to. I did come into this show with a lot of prejudice. Not the same level of prejudice that a lot of people had, but some prejudice nonetheless. And I am so glad that it absolutely flipped the script on me.
Thanks for your help.
Oh my God. Oh, what are you doing up there? Don't scare me like that.
Oh my gosh.
Gee.
I did not see this show being this good, and it is, for the record, that good. Now, for one of my misgivings about this show before it even aired was that I was not sure that I even wanted to see another Spider-Man origin story. And thankfully, watching this, it is not your stock standard origin story. Well, it kinda is, but it kinda isn't. What I mean by that is that it is an origin story, however, it is not the same old origin story that we have seen over and over and over and over and over again, depending on, well, how many Spider-Man movies, series, or games you have played that actually show the Peter Parker into Spider-Man transition origin story. Now, if you are one of the people that has consumed that much Spider-Man content, well, first, you need help. But secondly, then you can probably also recite the entire Spider-Man origin story back to front in your sleep and whilst the black cat got your tongue. It is so intuitive to you that your spider sense is actually telling the Spider-Man backstory with all of its bells and whistles. And thus, it was so refreshing seeing Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I call it euphemism in short, approach this very familiar story in such a new and inspired light. And for me, this approach is actually twofold. First being the storyline that the creative team decided upon and the incredibly brilliant narrative device that threads it all together. And second is the choice of characters from the wider Marvel roster in the main and supporting roles that drive this particular storyline. So let us go through those.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Starting firstly with the storyline, this time for fitting the Ben Parker chronology which forms the crux of the OG Spider-Man backstory.
You can do anything as long as you don't give up on yourself.
And giving us the more modern rendition that we have seen in the Tom Holland films, where Ben Parker is already absent as Peter Parker is taking on the mantle of Spider-Man. And then again, retreading very familiar grounds to those in the Tom Holland films, in euphemism, Peter Parker also has a billionaire benefactor. However, this time, in the stead of Tony Stark's Iron Man.
Alright, from your team. Okay.
That's not a hug, I'm just grabbing the door for you. We're not there yet.
Peter Parker's benefactor is actually Norman Osborn, who is yet to take up the mantle of the Green Goblin. Oh, and yeah, almost slipped my mind, mostly because it changes absolutely nothing. But yeah, Norman and Harry Osborn are race swapped in this, and they are now black. So, if that's a problem for you, then, well, that's a problem for you. But then again, just so we're clear, you saw the original Norman Osborn design and you thought, yeah, I guess it does make sense that a white guy can pull off those kinds of waves. Really? Anyway, let us put that on the back burner for now and concentrate more on the story rather than the color of the people in the story. Cool? Thank you. And so, with Norman Osborn as Spider-Man's benefactor, in this show actually named Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, emphasis on neighborhood, we get to truly explore how messed up it is for Spider-Man to have a billionaire benefactor as it takes him from a grounded bootstrap superhero into an industry plant. Yeah, you see, one of the key criticisms of the Tom Holland films is that he has Tony Stark as his benefactor.
Stark? I don't feel so good.
Thereby taking our everyday man street-level superhero and turning him into a galactic guardian. A change that deprived fans of their favorite neighborhood wall crawler. However, in the films, that benefactor being a renowned, charismatic and beloved superhero in his own right, it was a change that wasn't highlighted in the film itself. But in euphemism, having the benefactor be a character we know to be a future villain elevates this fan criticism into a plot point of its own within the show, thereby showcasing the follies of having our favorite web-slinger having a billionaire benefactor both metaphorically and literally pulling his strings.
You're
Dude at the desk!
not how I would have put it, but sure.
You see, the essence of Spider-Man, the spirit of Spider-Man, the soul of Spider-Man has always been,
With great power comes great responsibility.
and that is actually born from having this inherited will from Uncle Ben. And whilst the films try to have this very same inherited will from Aunt Bay,
And with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Euphemism cleverly plays with this expectation by having a twisted version of the same be peddled by Mr. Osborn.
With great power comes great respect.
Not only juxtaposing the ideals of the very grounded, very humble, and fatherly Uncle Ben,
I don't mean to lecture and I don't mean to preach. And I know I'm not your father.
Then stop pretending to be.
Right.
to those of the very selfish and goal-oriented business mogul that is Norman Osborn.
And if you don't have respect, you have nothing. You need to give the world a reason to respect you.
But also in a kinda brilliant way, bring up the ideals that form the core of the soul of Spider-Man without him actually saying the words.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Quite overtly. Now, whilst that informs us on the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, next comes the format through which this is served to its audience, and I will be honest, this is one of my favorite things about this series, as the narrative device that is decided upon to drive this story through is that of a time paradox. I won't lie, time paradoxes absolutely hurt my head thinking about them, but when they are used well as a narrative device, I absolutely love them, and Euphemism actually uses this narrative device in a very clever way. To avoid spoilers, I will not be delving deeper into this, but if you have watched the show, you have to admit that it was so cool to see how the origin of this storyline's Spider-Man is so intrinsically tied to the ending of this particular story. And whilst the middle episodes between the show's pilot and its finale have a villain of the week motif, they also have a very tight focus on the characters introduced in the main and supporting roles, building depth in them through character-specific themes and further characterization. Bringing us neatly into that second element of the twofold approach that I had spoken about earlier, the characters. As a comic book fan or a fan of any long-running franchise, you grow accustomed to the cast of characters that you expect to see in any rendition of the same. And for the most part, you get that here as well. You have your Norman Osborn, you have your Harry Osborn, and you have Aunt Bay, who is still very Baylicious, paired with the very familiar faces of Cat Connors, or rather Carla Connors in this case, better known to you as the Lizard, Mark Gagan's Scorpion, Dr. Otto Octavius, and Alexei's, or in this case, Mikhail's soon-to-be Rhino, just to name a few of the characters already introduced from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery.
You brought a knife to a web fight? That's actually really smart.
However, Euphemism doesn't just stop at the obvious. It gives us very spicy additions from the wider Marvel universe, giving us characters such as Nico Minoru, Lonnie Lincoln's Tombstone, Paul Pangan's Wave, an aged-up Amadeus Cho, Jean Foucault's Finesse, and many more that I am sure you have missed yourself. Take for example this board behind Harry where he is taking a list of recruits for his WEB program. Each and every single one of these names is an established Marvel character. But more than just having a quantity of character inclusions, this show has a quality of them. It is arguable that these characters, whether they are making their return to screen or it is their first on-screen portrayal, are given the care and depth that makes a character great. And this is achieved through two ways. Firstly being the casting, where the voice actors carried out their duties pristinely with names such as Hudson Thames, Coleman Domingo, Eugene Bird, Grace Song, Carrie Walgreen, Hugh Dancy, Jonathan Medina, Kathy Ange, WWE's Big E, and of course Zach Cherry.
Okay, Spider-Man! Don't flip! Yeah!
And secondly, rounding out these characters are their character designs. Full props to the artists and animators who took part in the making of Euphemism. And speaking of art, let us speak about the art style and the animation style of this particular show, which actually was a very huge point of negativity when this show was first announced. Now, I won't lie, it actually took me an episode or two to get accustomed to the style of this show. However, I will actually fight anybody who says that this animation style is bad. Is it different from all the other animation styles we get out there? Sure, it definitely is. But does that actually make it bad? No, it does not. Case in point, Marvel's X-Men 97, which also has a very different animation and art style from what we're used to, but that show has a very gorgeous art style and an almost nostalgic feel to it, as it is an updated version of the original X-Men series. For euphemism, I would say that this style is actually more reminiscent of a comic book come to life, complete with transitioning and placement that uses comic book paneling. The show borrows very heavily from comic books, in fact, that the opening title cards are actually modern renditions of very popular Spider-Man volume covers. And the buck doesn't stop there, as there are so many deep cuts for comic book fans to pick out and enjoy throughout their watch through, ranging from things such as the names on Harry's recruitment list, as I mentioned earlier, to things such as the comic book accurate costumes that Spider-Man tries out in one of these episodes. The Easter eggs are a dime a dozen, and if you are a true Spider-Man fan or a true Marvel fan, then you will enjoy watching through this series with a keen eye. So, what is my rating for this show? Well, it is about a 3/4 full tank of that good old-fashioned homemade web fluid. For all of the hate that this show got on the release of its trailer, alongside my personal prejudice going into it, this show far surpasses any expectations anybody had, more especially for people like me who went into this show with zero expectations of it actually being any good. And even more than that, I dare say that this show might be the best Spider-Man product that we have gotten in the modern era. It is quite literally up there alongside X-Men 97 in Marvel's new animated series. So if you haven't watched it and was still on the fence of if you should watch it, I highly recommend that you should. This being a message from your friendly neighborhood weirdo.